In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But what happened in 1493? That's the part history often leaves out. While schoolbooks paint Columbus as a brave explorer, his second voyage reveals a far more disturbing truth, one of conquest, cruelty, and colonization. This wasn't just a return to the New World. It was a full-blown invasion. With 17 ships, over 1,000 men, and a royal mandate to dominate, Columbus unleashed a wave of destruction that would echo across centuries. This is the story they never taught you. But when Columbus returned just 1 year later, he wasn't the same man. And this wasn't the same kind of voyage. Columbus's first voyage in 1492 had just 3 small ships and fewer than 100 men. It was bold, uncertain, and, in many ways, miraculous. But the second voyage, that was different. He returned to the Caribbean in 1493, not as an explorer, but as a colonizer. This time, Columbus commanded 17 ships, carrying over 1,200 men, soldiers armed for battle, priests prepared to convert, craftsmen, farmers, and even criminals. This was no longer a mission of discovery. It was an empire in the making. The Spanish crown had one goal: establish control. The orders were clear-build settlements, claim land, extract wealth, and convert the natives to Christianity. But when Columbus reached the island of Hispaniola and returned to the fort of La Navidad, built during his first voyage, he found it burned to the ground. His men were dead, killed, it seemed, by the very people they had come to dominate. This was only the beginning of a brutal transformation of the New World. What Columbus found next would ignite a brutal conflict, one that would destroy the peace between the Spanish and the native people. When Columbus first met the Taino people in 1492, they were welcoming and generous. But by the time he returned, everything had changed. The fort at La Navidad was gone. The men he'd left behind were dead, reportedly killed after abusing and enslaving the locals. Columbus saw this not as a warning, but as an insult to Spanish authority, and his response was swift and savage. To enforce control, Columbus imposed a brutal tribute system. Every Taino over the age of 14 was required to deliver a quota of gold dust every 3 months. Those who failed faced horrific punishments, mutilation, torture, or death. One account describes Columbus as men chopping off the hands of those who couldn't meet the quota, leaving them to bleed to death as a warning to others. This wasn't discovery. This was domination. A peaceful world was being shattered, and the real horror had only begun. But the violence didn't stop there. In fact, it got even worse when Columbus turned people into cargo. As gold proved scarce, Columbus looked for another resource to extract: human lives. He began capturing Taino men, women, and children by the thousands, shipping them back to Spain as slaves. He even wrote to the monarchs that these people could be a profitable export. His own words read, "Let us in the name of the Holy Trinity go on sending all the slaves that can be sold." Queen Isabella was horrified. She had not authorized the enslavement of people she saw as potential Christian converts. She ordered many of the captives released. But by then, the damage was done. On the islands, those not sent to Spain were forced into backbreaking labor in gold mines and plantations. With no immunity to European diseases, many died within weeks. The second voyage marked the beginning of a system that would haunt the Americas for centuries: the transatlantic slave trade. Even the Spanish settlers couldn't escape the nightmare they helped create. But the cruelty wasn't just reserved for the natives. Columbus's second voyage quickly descended into chaos, even among his own men. The settlers had come chasing wealth and glory. Instead, they found famine, disease, and endless hardship. The promised riches never materialized. Gold was rare, crops failed, and supplies ran low. Disillusioned and desperate, mutinies broke out. Some colonists defied Columbus's authority. Others fled back to Spain to report his brutality and failures to the crown. To maintain control, Columbus turned increasingly authoritarian. He ruled with fear, punishing both natives and Spaniards alike. His governance became so harsh that Spanish officials would later send investigators and eventually arrest him. The man, who once set sail as a hero, was now a tyrant, returning to Spain in disgrace. The consequences of this voyage didn't end with Columbus's fall from grace. In fact, they were just beginning. Columbus' second voyage was indeed just a chapter in history. It was a turning point. With it began the true colonization of the Americas, the blueprint for empire building through violence, slavery, and forced conversion. The Taino, once a thriving people numbering up to 500,000 on Hispaniola alone, were nearly exterminated within just a few decades. Disease, starvation, and brutality decimated them. By the mid-1500s, less than 10,000 remained. Some estimates say it was fewer than 500. Yet in many history books, this part of the story is barely mentioned. We celebrate Columbus for discovering the New World. But what he truly unleashed was centuries of oppression. Narrator: the second voyage reveals Columbus not as a hero, but as a harbinger of empire and of devastation. History isn't always what we've been told. Columbus's second voyage wasn't about discovery. It was about domination. And it set in motion a legacy of suffering that reshaped the world. If this truth shocked you, share it. The more we know, the more we understand. And the more we understand, the more we can change. Please like, subscribe, and comment. What other historical truths should we uncover? This is Urban Lore, bringing you the hidden history they never taught you in school.